Hi, this is a continuation of cutting a PCB board on the Bantam tools. And what we're going to do now is set it up to cut the top of the board. Something I forgot to mention, though, that you might want to use is a little multimeter for continuity, because we want to check that after we've cut it, it has the proper isolation and continuity that we would expect. So what we have here is the two boards, and notice that we have the two boards here, and there's a top and a bottom. And right now we have it set up to cut on the top, right? We have this pushed against the lower left. And so we would not want to be cutting the bottom. So let's go make sure that we're on the top. The other thing we don't want to be cutting yet are the holes or the outline. This is going to save you some steps, because here's what's going to happen. We are going to select the engraving tool, and the engraving tool is going to allow us to cut out the traces. So we can go in here, select metal engraving bit, and we can do the same thing for the second one. Go to metal engraving bit here. Okay. Oops, not that one. We want to go to engraving bit. Sorry. Okay, good. And again, I just want to select the traces, not the holes or the outline. And the reason why is the holes and outline, we're going to reserve that for the 1/32 end mill. Okay. So notice it gives us a preview of what it's going to cut. It's going to cut the traces for both of these, right? The text and all this good stuff, but it's not going to cut the outline or any holes if you have any. All right. And so now we got to make sure that we have the right material, FR2, not FR, or double-sided, sorry, double-sided here. Good. So we got our double-sided instead of single-sided. And we want to make sure that we have the right tool. So obviously the 1/8 end mill is not going to be good. We're going to go to hit change. And we want to select the engraving bit. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is actually take that tool out now and put the engraving bit. So I got my two wrenches and loosen it. Okay. And remember, once I get it to a point where it's hand loosened, I'm going to put my hand underneath here so that when it falls out, it doesn't fall onto the table. Okay. So here's a little engraving bit. And this engraving bit you can either get from the Bantam Tools website or Northbridge Technical. I'll leave a link in the description. So we're going to put this in, finger tighten, okay? And then I'll get in here, put the two wrenches and snugly lock it in there. Okay, so again, it has to go locate it. So I'm going to hit continue. Okay, so continue here. Okay, and I'm going to make sure everything is clear. Nothing is over there. Okay, on the right, and I'm going to hit locate tool. Now, I believe you can experiment with either the engraving bit or the 0.003 inch end mill. One might be faster than the other. And so you could choose this very small one. Another thing you could do, if your traces aren't very close together, you could choose a thicker, like 1/16 maybe end mill, and that'll give you a little more space around these traces to avoid solder bridges. So it's up to you. You got to experiment. I'm just going to show you how to do this one. Okay, so we got everything in here. It's loaded up. Okay, I think we're pretty much ready to cut. Now, what's going to happen is we are going to check how deep it cuts. If it's starting to cut too deep, we're going to cancel it and we're going to change this thickness. Right now it says 1.64 millimeter. I just I just measured it. It said 1.60 millimeters on the calipers, but we'll see if we have to make an adjustment, right? If we're cutting too deep, we're going to make this number bigger to trick it in thinking there's a thicker material in there and it'll cut higher, right? And so let's just see what's going to happen. And depending on your machine, you might have to experiment with that. So I'm going to confirm everything is good. Top traces, the correct bit, good. And now what I got to do is I got to put in my side glass protectors, right? And then actually I'm going to really press that down, just make sure that's all down there. Yep, okay. And I think we're ready to cut. So you can hear spindle rebooting, that red thing is gone. And I'm going to scroll all the way down. It says mill all visible, and we're going to, yes, sir, let's do it. Okay, good, it's moving. And I can have my hand here at the ready for stopping. And I'm going to look at it. Wow, looks pretty good. Let me see if I can get the camera in there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, it might be hard to see for you, but you can see that it's engraving with decent resolution, the lettering, right? So that's a good sign. Like I said, if it goes a little too deep, then what you can do is definitely stop the cut, come back in and change. You can go in and change the thickness, but right now it looks pretty good. And so we're gonna let that run. Okay. Kind of mesmerizing, makes these fun little sounds. And it's really cool to see this machine in action, right? And especially when it's your design, it's like, yeah, I made that, okay? And you can definitely see why we have this nice case here. This keeps all the dust and all the fine particles ready to go. I have a vacuum cleaner, so when I finish this job, I'm gonna go and vacuum it, and then I'm gonna flip it over, okay? Good, so it finished the first one. It's gonna go and now automatically do the second board here. So that's kind of nice. Right. Excellent. Yep. Looks like everything's good. So I can put it like this. Okay. And notice you do have a stop and a pause. Stop is like you can't, it's going to start back up at the very beginning. Pause will pause wherever it's at and then resume. So if you just want to pause it and resume, don't hit the stop one, okay? Especially if it's a longer job, right? But you can see it's relatively quick. You know, we're talking about 3 minutes here just to cut the top side. Now, as you get more complicated traces, of course, it's going to be a longer cut, right? But it's a really cool little machine, and it's at least served me well for these past few years, cutting boards for students and myself. Yeah, it looks like it's almost done here. Yeah, it's looking good. All right, and that's it. It's done. So we can go in here and check it out. Okay, so we're gonna open this up. And what we can go over to is right up here, we're gonna hit loading. Okay, so I'm gonna go loading, good. And with loading, it actually brings it to the front. And yes, this is excellent. I'm gonna just brush this away, and you can see the nice traces. So you might say, oh, maybe it was a little thick, but actually a little thick sometimes is good because it guarantees there's isolation. Well, we can come in now and we're gonna double check that those pads are isolated. So I'm going to take my multimeter, I have it set for continuity, you can see it over here. And if I touch it, you can hear that beep. And so I'm gonna touch this ground plane here, and I'm gonna touch these pads and make sure I don't hear a beep. So good, good. And I'm going to come, and the reason why I'm doing it now in this stage is because if I do hear any problems where there's no isolation, it didn't completely cut through, I can go adjust the height and do a quick recut. Don't have to change anything. This is the fastest way to detect mistakes, right? It takes a little bit longer to do that continuity and isolation test, but man, is it worth it if you catch something wrong, right? If it cut a little too thin in one area, you can easily dial it in and just do a recut, right? 3 more minutes of your time, as opposed to you flip it over, you solder it up, and then your circuit's not working, and then you just start going through a headache as to finding the problem. Here, this is the easiest way. Continuity test, please trust me, saves you a lot of headache and time. Okay, well, that concludes this video. I'll see you in the next one where we're going to take this out and we're going to set up the other side and cut the bottom. Okay, great.